go into prone scaption. You have two options here. You can set up in the bent arm chest stretch. It's where you turn one hand in, you give yourself a little space, come out, you maybe might want to come back, and you can lean into but stretch away from the turned hand. You're operating at about a 10% intensity, and you are rotating your shoulder blade to get in and out of the stretch. For some of you, that might be plenty to get into the stretch. Some of us require a little bit of elevation to get into the stretch. And so the modification for the movement will be the prone scaption shoulder rotation. In this modification or variation, I like to start at about 45 degrees angle. So this being 0, this being 90, we'll say this is about 45. And you want to give yourself enough space. And it's not just cranking down at your waist to get into the stretch. You want to lean into it, have your elbow bent, and rotate your shoulder blade to get to the stretch. Operating at about 10% intensity. As we set up for the stretch before we begin our initial pulses, we can hold for 5 to 10 seconds. Then begin to pulse or contract, slow and controlled. As this stretch progresses, you'll find that you're going to get more and more ranges of motion. Begin pulsing. And you can adjust accordingly. Feel free to explore. Avoid the urge to crank down on this stretch with all your might. I know it feels good, but let's ease into the stretch. We're holding again. If your support arm gets fatigued, you can always come down on it. You can change the position of it. You can make the adjustments you need. We want to be comfortable. Back to contracting, slow and controlled rotations. I like to look through this window my arm creates and hold. Often we hold a lot of tension in our neck, so looking through this window kind of provides a cue that allows our neck to relax a little bit. You can see as this hold goes on, I begin to shift my body weight a little more, pressing into the box slightly to disengage. Setting up, holding, contracting, slow and controlled, and hold. Again, 10% intensity. We don't want it to be too intense. Back to slow and controlled contractions. You don't want it to be too intense, especially this is the first stretch of the sequence. We don't want to burn out in the beginning. We still have plenty of stretches to explore. Slow and controlled and hold. We're holding into the tension. about 30 seconds here. At any point that these stretches become too intense, rest is always an option. You can always get out of the stretch. Press away. Now we're getting into the posterior shoulder opener, or the L arm. I like to set up into it with my arm extended as I roll over to it. Sometimes my arm is up here, sometimes it's straight across. Maybe I'll start in the middle today. I'm aiming to get the stretch right here on the outside of my shoulder. I'm trying to avoid a pinch in between my chest and my shoulder. If you experience that pinch, you can bring your hand a little higher. You also want to avoid numbness. So let's say you roll over and it immediately gets numb. You can position yourself to where you're not putting all your weight on your arm. Okay? But another question is, what do we do with this free hand? You can tuck it under you if you'd like. Sometimes I like to put it right out in front of me and rest my head on my hand to support my neck. As I get deeper into the stretch, you'll notice I start shifting my hand around because I use it for leverage. So the rotation of this stretch, it's almost like we're trying to get this shoulder parallel with the ground, so we'll rotate this way. Our elbow is against the ground, and that's pulling traction, which allows the tension to occur right here, posterior part of the shoulder. Okay, we've been holding for a minute now, so gentle rotations. Doesn't have to be aggressive to be effective. Slow and controlled. Palm open towards the ceiling. And hold. You can hike up your rear leg if you'd like to. It may help your back feel a little more comfortable. It may help you get a little more leverage. And the leg you hike up will be on the same side as the arm you were stretching. Slow and controlled contractions. It's not a very large motion. A lot of these stretches are not large motions. Holding, which is kind of one of the things we try to teach about how to access the stretch with a minimal motion. Back to slow and controlled contractions. With practice, it gets easier and easier to get right to the stretch. As you first start off, it may take a couple of tries for you to really figure out the postures and motions, and that's okay. It's okay if we don't get it. Back to holding, it's okay if we don't get it on the first try. I like to actively disengage, so I'll drive my elbow into the ground, prop myself back up before switching sides. Switch sides, roll on over, hike up my leg to get the leverage, and I'm in it. A little hold, couple pulses. And I'm holding. You may experience a different stretch on different sides. Back to slow and controlled contractions. And that's okay if it feels different on different sides. We hold tension differently in different places of our body. higher than the other. That's perfectly fine too. Slow and controlled contractions. And again, they're not huge. And one more hold. If you're losing the stretch, you can take that hand and get some leverage. Push away from the ground a little bit. Today my shoulders are tight. It's just taking a little bit of rotation for me to engage, to initiate the stretch. Okay, I'll disengage. Set up. That was our posterior shoulder opener. Now set up for the seated clasped hand extension stretch. Some of you may be able to do this stretch with ease. For me, this is a little more challenging. So I switch between modification and the full stretch, but we'll start off with this full stretch. You want to roll your shoulders back and have your hands clasped behind you. Shoulders roll back, hands clasped. You want to try to keep your back flat. It's okay if your back arches a little bit. And then you raise your hands, keeping your arms straight if you can. Raise your hands. So you're leading with your hands. To get a little deeper in the stretch, you hinge at the hips. What I mean by hinging at the hips is hinge right here. You're not trying to round your back. All right? Shoulders roll back, arms extended, hands clasped. Leading with the hands are coming up first, and then you can hinge at the hip. If this is really uncomfortable, modify the movement by holding a stick behind our hands with our palms up, okay? You can have your hands right next to each other. You can have them spread farther apart. I kind of play with the distance every time I stretch it. Okay, and we will go into the stretch. Shoulders roll back, leading with the hands, slight hold, and then I'll begin to pulse, slow and controlled. And hold. 10% intensity. This is a really tough one, so if you need to dial it down to 5% intensity, that is fine. Again, rest is always an option. Slow and controlled contractions. Trying to keep those shoulders rolled back. It doesn't need to be aggressive. It doesn't need to be a dramatic movement. Holding into the tension, out of the tension. Our hold, we want to not hold through pain. If you need to rest, take a rest, or you can dial it down. Okay, slow and controlled contractions. And hold. I'm going to try to get a little deeper and bring my hands together. Okay, that was the seated hands clasped extension. Next, we're going to go into the upper thoracic extension. So we're after our T-spine. As you get into the stretch, your natural inclination is going to be to arch your back and allow your shoulders to open up as much as possible. While this feels good and it's a good stretch, that's not what we're after. We want to do our best to keep our back flat, and what I mean by that is back flat. You don't want to be arched, you don't want to be rounded. A good way to initiate that setup is to try to approach it with our hips stacked over our knees. Another thing you can do is pull in your ribs and maybe drive your pelvis and your pockets forward to give you some good hip alignment to keep your back flat. Now, I'm going to put the box against the wall so that way you have some support behind it to keep the box from sliding all over the place. The motion is going to be like a J scoop, where I'm going to scoop this way. My shoulder blades are going to come up, and as I go into a J scoop, my shoulder blades are going to come down. And this is how it will look. Trying to keep my back flat. Right now, my shoulder blades are up. As I scoop, I'm bringing my shoulder blades towards my butt. Okay? So we'll do a slight hold in that J scoop. Boom. It's almost like I'm bringing my shoulder blades together. Now, slow and controlled contractions. Scooping. Try to keep your arms straight. Try to keep your back flat. Again, 10% intensity. And rest is always an option. Okay, out of the stretch, back to the contractions. Boom. The motion is coming from my shoulder blades, not so much my hips. Now, my hips may rock a little bit, but that's not the driving force. Holding in that J scoop, it's like I'm holding the bottoms of my shoulder blades together. And slow and controlled contractions. Really feeling my shoulder blades go up and down my thoracic spine. That's the upper part of your spine, right underneath your neck. And then one more J scoop and hold. Okay, gently press away from the box to come out of it. Again, this is the upper thoracic extension. In the next stretch, we're going to explore the camel. In this stretch, we're trying to open up our chest and the fronts of our shoulders. We're not trying to stress our lower back. So if you're experiencing stress or pain in your lower back, then explore the modifications, or we may need to work our way into this stretch. For those of you who are familiar with the camel, the shoulders rolled back, hands on our heels. We're trying to have our shoulder, our elbow, and heels stacked. Straight line, straight vertical line. That may be really intense for many of us. So what you can do is get a chair behind you and line your feet up. Try to line your heels up. Boom, boom. And for me, I would have to drive my knees a little farther, be able to lean back. If it's a heightened challenge, you can hold the legs of the chair, or you can try to get a box and just have your feet directly against it, and you can use the box. And so we typically want our hands back or out to the side, and you can use the box to get lined up. The motion, the contraction, is coming from the chest opening up. Almost like there's a string pulling your chest to the ceiling. Okay? You see this? It's not a big motion. Okay. I'm probably going to alternate between a full camel and a modified camel using this box. I get into the stretch. Tuck your toes, lick your heels, make your heels higher. Shoulders roll back, opening up my chest, slight hold, and then I begin to pulse. You bend your elbows slightly if needed, and hold. Keeping those shoulders rolled back, keeping my chest open, trying to keep that tension off my lower back to pulsing. You can play with your hand placement throughout the stretch. Maybe get relief for your arms or get deeper into the stretch. If you need to get out of the stretch because of the intensity, get out of the stretch. It's okay. Your arms may get tired. For my last contraction and hold, I like to take a moment, I shake it out, and then I resume. Scooping my chest up like there's a string pulling on it. You can even feel my shoulder blades come together as my chest opens. And for the final hold, shoulders roll back and relax out of the stretch.